tell you some words about me. I'm a student. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a student of the Institution of International Education, a sophomore to be precise, and my major is in linguistics, English and international communication. Also, this year is the first year of my education in the London University, where I'm getting a degree of Bachelor of English. And you also can see some of my scores in the exams. And the one for English was 92. Let's move to the first section, which is listening. The very important thing about listening is you have to pay attention to details and keywords. For example, let's have a look at this task. It's from Rishriga. I believe you know this site. And all the variants are very fresh, so you don't have to worry if they're outdated. The most frequent words here are uniforms and dress code. Also, under the number 5, we have unbelievable coincidence. What can I say about this variant? It's pretty easy because it will be a story about something which usually don't fit. So let's move on. The last part of the sentence is essential as long as we now know the topic. It's uniform and dress code. We'll look at the details. The first one, we have that uniforms can hide people. As long as you got this little detail, you need to predict which possible words will be included in this one. If uniforms hide people, most likely the attention of the speaker will be attracted to similarities and the lack of personality in uniform. Let's move to the second variant about strict rules. If the rules are strict, people will also be very disappointed. So if the speaker is rather negative about what he is talking about or she is talking about, this might be connected to this option. And in the third one, we have a relation of dress code to the uniform, which is a good one because as long as you hear dress code and uniform in one sentence, most likely this option will be relevant, or if the comparison occurs. Let's look at the fourth one. This one is quite tricky because it, in a way, is very similar to the first one. As you can see, it prevents us looking our best, and there may be some hooks which can drag your attention away from the right choice. So be very careful. If the person is focused focused on looking their best, that's the option. If it's only about losing personality, it's the first one. Unbelievable coincidence I've mentioned before. Just the story which is very different from the others. That's your pick. And the two options are left. Uniforms are always dull. Again, it's very similar to the first one, so be very careful. This speaker most likely will be complaining about boredom, and some words which are synonymic to this one will be very helpful for you. And the final one, I like these options because they are very different from the others. In this one, the speaker will praise dress codes because they can be fun. Most likely there will be some life hacks how to improve your uniform and dress code. So it may be very interesting. The second task. You will hear the interview, and the first thing which is very useful to do is to identify names. Usually there are 2 of them, and here we got Peter and Jane. Usually these 2 interlocutors introduce each other or they just greet each other, but the voice of the speaker will also give you hints about which name you should listen to. As long as you identify your speakers, you should also focus on the details. Here we have some information about library, term studies, relation to classmates, and work at the computer. And then you should find some more keywords, because this particular task, the second one, I mean, is very attached to details. For example, if Peter usually goes to the library, the option will be false, and if rarely, it will be true. So condition is very different according to these little details. As well as in the first one, you can see that I highlighted some more words for you. For example, if Peter is dissatisfied, the condition will change and your answer will be different. And these words are quite important. So while you're listening for the task, you remember, I believe, the first point where the particular text, which I also put on the slide, I think in the top point on Russian. While you're listening to this introduction, you can use this time to read the task and to highlight some keywords. So just don't waste your time. I think you've heard this introduction too many times to really pay attention to it. And while listening to it, you just help yourself, because listening is limited to time and you won't have enough minutes to improve it or change in any way. Well, I think we should return to our task. What about Jane? There were some expectations about Peter's exam, about her position of a best student, and problems with one of her subjects. As you can see, I've also highlighted some words for you. The point of focus here are whether Jane expects Peter to pass the exam or not, whether she has always been the best student, or is a recent achievement, or she was a best student, or she just planned to be the best student, which will define your answer. And also whether she has problems with one of the subjects or several ones. I'm sorry, I just had a the third task is, I think, the most difficult, because it plays with your attention. Here, keywords are not very useful because they are used to trick you in some way. Let's have a closer look. For example, you have a keyword musical education, but later you will hear something about music talent, something about musical school and playing the piano, but the further details will define yours as well. What I would like to tell you is that you shouldn't pick the option as fast as you hear, for example, musical school, because the number of years might be different, or about playing the piano she could or she couldn't like, so you should listen for the details. Bearing this in mind, let's have a look at the further exercises about becoming an actress. Here are some options, and why have I highlighted these words? For example, the profession could run not in her family but just among her friends, or she wanted to overcome not the stage fright, but for example, the fright of public speaking or something like that. And the third one, I don't see any problems with this, but still there can be some difficult points. Also, we have the task about directors and directing. And once more, I'm highlighting some words for you. Maggie will definitely mention David Lynch, but she can say that he is the best director or he is among the best directors. And the next one, she could herself direct a film one day. I've just mentioned this particular situation with the Jane and becoming the best student. Like the indicators of time will be of great help for you here, because they will define your answer. And the last one, she thinks that she was fortunate to work with many talented directors, or she could not be, or she just wanted to work with many talented directors. Well, this task is also very interesting because the most important thing for Maggie, I believe that if you stumble upon a task like this, the examiners may play a trick with you and mention things that are, for example, important for directors or for your fellow actors or just for the viewers. But the options at least are simple, just story, screenplay, and partners. We also have a task about Maggie playing mothers. And all the options are quite fine, apart from the last one again, because this particular variant has a lot of attachment to time indicators, and you should be careful about them. What else do we have about this interview? Oh, Maggie thinking of her appearance. Oh, well, we can see that she should take care of the way she looks on the screen, that she thinks it doesn't matter. Oh, she looks beautiful. Here we can have information about her crew, for example, the people who make makeup, sorry for tautology, or who design her clothes. It can be their duty, but I think it's okay. It's not a very difficult task. And one more question is about the reason why Maggie loves being an actress. Well, it's all about abilities, and one is attached to the previous one. The last one, I mean, looking beautiful on the screen. Well, I don't think it will be mentioned because there are rarely connections between the two questions in a row. And also, returning to the first ones, she's able to play both men and women and able to express complex characters. These attributes, like bold and complex, are very important because she can name different types of descriptions or just describe other things with the same words. And here I wrote some listening tips for you to make it easier for you to understand. Like, you should identify keywords, highlight the topic, focus on distinctive details, make some notes, and use second listening to check your answers, and read the task with the explanatory introduction. I think we can move on to the next part of our discussion, which is reading. And the thing about the reading is that you don't have to read the entire text, just to focus on some particular parts. And about the first reading, I beg you, please don't read the headings before the text, because usually they just make you feel biased. You start to search for the words which were mentioned and do not pay attention to the context. So first, you should better read the extracts and then try to find the right heading. Let's start with this one. And also, all the necessary information usually consists, not consists, but is presented in the first sentence or the last sentence. I've highlighted some words for you. In this particular one, there are Her Majesty's government derives its authority from its party representations in Parliament, and housed in the Palace of Westminster, once home of the monarchy. Well, there are two options because we have Parliament, we have Majesty's government, and the Palace of Westminster. And also there are some descriptions of monarchy in the House of Lords, but in general there are not enough, and there are too many descriptions of the two parties. So we can't say that it's either the House of Commons or the House of Lords. But still, we have the name of the place, which is Westminster, and that will be our point. But honestly, I don't like this extract because it's not very clear, and when you have some extracts which are not obvious for you for the first time, you should just skip them and return to them later to save your time. But as long as we are searching for tips, I just giving you the answer right away. Let's analyze this one. Once again, some highlighted words for you. We have the reigning monarch, the monarchy in Britain, and also the monarchy is hereditary, and the monarchy is the head of the executive and of judiciary staff and the Church of England. So we have a description of monarchy, and it's synonymous to the other option, which is the crown. Sometimes when you have some keywords, you shouldn't look precisely for them, but also consider their synonyms. But I believe you know this information. So let's move further on. I just show you some words to not waste our time. Here we have the power of Parliament, which lies in lower chamber, the Commons, and other rooms for the Commons. In the beginning of our discussion of the first exercise in reading, we were showed that there are two parties, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. So you see that it's the lower chamber, and you further on seek for some more evidence if you don't remember the information from the first extracts. And we have like Commons and Commons. So here is our choice, the House of Commons. This one is also quite interesting because it states that Britain is a democracy. It also has some description of a constitutional situation, the levels, the subjects, and all the stuff related to social science. So I believe that this is the system of the government because we are overwhelmed by the notions which are not related to English as much as to politics or to social sciences. And once more, I'm highlighting words for you. I also don't like this one as well as the first because it's more like a filler, and only one word which you can pay your attention to is white hole. Now, these texts are quite complicated because you're just getting lost and you're nervous because it has very little relation to the general topic or just to any other headings. So stick to some distinctive points, some names, some dates, or stuff like that. And as I've said before, the information is in the first sentence. We have a parliamentary session, and further on we have the description. And the session is the synonym of procedure, so we're choosing procedure. And the last one. Here we have the opposite of the lower chamber, which is the upper chamber. And we have only two descriptions of chambers in our headings. So we are picking the House of Lords. And also in the last sentence, you have business done in the Lords, which only solidifies our claim. And here are some extracts from our discussion. As I've mentioned, don't read the headings before the text. Read the opening and the final sentences first, because usually it's the essential information which is held there. Skip the text you don't understand to return to them later. Look for keywords, but don't rely on them entirely. First skim and scan, then read for proofs. The last strategy is only relevant when you do not have a solid understanding of the text, or you're just not unsure or anxious. But usually you shouldn't be anxious during the exam because you start to panic and your attention lessens, so it's better to relax a bit. And the second reading, it's not very hard as it might seem, because you just need to read the surrounding of the blank space which you are given, and you don't have to read the entire text. Let's see what we can do here. For example, we see that researchers used recordings, but they use them for some reason. Then we look at the possible insertions, and we see that only 2 of them may indicate the reason why something was chosen. We have to create the evolutionary tree linking humans and apes, and to trace the origin of laughter back. Unfortunately, the first surrounding is not enough, so we read further on to get the context. Used recordings of apes and babies being tickled, something needs to be inserted to the last common ancestor. If we have something about the last common ancestor, so there might be a procession or evolution. Or evolution tree is not that much relevant because it's about tracing, not creating. So we selecting the final one. Let's move to the next one. Challenges the opinion. What opinion? We need to find it out. So the descriptive sentences will be number 3, number 4, and number 5. They introduced with that, and preposition that usually introduce some explanations or descriptions. The author is uniquely a human trait, that humans were closest to chimps and bonobos, and that laughing comes from a common primate ancestor. As well as in the previous one, we can't say for sure which option to pick, so we read further on. Challenges the opinion, and also it's suggesting instead that it emerged long before humans split from the evolutionary path that led to our primate cousins. So we have a split, and our primate cousins are also mentioned. So we make a suggestion that the laughter is not uniquely a human trait because laughter also led to our primate cousins. We are not the only ones who are able to laugh. And that's very positive, I suppose. Let's move to the next one. We have a psychologist who was interested in something. So we don't have any kind of descriptions here, so we need a clear statement of the interest of the psychologist. So the first one will be chosen because she's interested whether laughing emerged earlier on that humans did. Well, letter D is about the record, and we have 2 options. Record baby and juvenile apes for what reason, or while they were doing something. Well, this one was kind of complicated for me because I couldn't decide for a long time which option to pick, and I thought that it would be strange to tickle animals to create. Oh no, I'm sorry, I just got a bit confused. Well, it was weird for her to travel for such a long time just to create a tree because she could use some additional materials. So I think that, well, the caretakers vertical apes would be a more appropriate one due to the sense of the sentence. So the point of this exercise, as well as searching for keywords, is to read for the sense if you do not have a clear understanding which option to pick. So let's move to our next one. Recordings showed us something, and we have 2 options left: that humans were closest to chimps and bonobos, and that laughing comes from common primate ancestor. We can't make a decision right away, so we read further on, and the furthest from orangutans with gorillas somewhere in the middle. So we have the scale, and we need to relate it somehow, and we are picking that humans were closest to chimps and bonobos. Also, you have certain relation to different types of apes, And this homogeneous part of the sentence may also come of help for you, because if there are a lot of them in the text and a lot of them in one of the headings, you should pick this one. And our final one in this task is something that is showing strong evidence to suggest what we have only one option to pick from, is that nothing comes from primary entity, because previously we have already used everything with the preposition that. And to make it more clear, here are some second reading tips for you. Read the surroundings, pay attention to prepositions and conjunctions. Make a decision based on the meaning of a sentence in the case when it's unclear or you have too many options. And usually it doesn't come to this too often. And also you will not read the whole text. But if you have time, it would be nice if you could skim the text once more to make sure that you got the sense correctly. But if you're very short in time, you shouldn't waste it. And the third reading, I think personally, this is my favorite one, because you just don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Just search for keywords like a real robot, or just like when you search something in the document. Well, we have a character, and we need to insert some keywords. We're particularly interested that it was her first time she traveled by train, and we need to find time indicators. It's whether when she moved to her aunt Alice, whether it was a vacation at school, whether she went to Pittsburgh or visited her aunt with another aunt. There is a distinction between the first one and the fourth one, is that she had to move to her aunt. It's something permanent, so it's not paying a visit, like the collocation is a bit different. Unfortunately, the whole text was too big to put it in the slide, so I divided the text into two sections, and I hope you can see it well. The keywords which I want to pay your attention to is that she made her first train trip, and when you see the keyword first train trip, you should read the surroundings. The words in blue may cause some confusion, and you shouldn't pay attention to them, but as long as we're learning here, I highlighted them as well. You may get confused because there is a mention of midsummer, and subconsciously you can think about the summer vacation, but it's not correct. We should read further on. And also we have support for this claim about my aunt Winnie's annual vacation and on a trip to Pittsburgh. But this information is not necessary, and it's not essential for the key idea of the first train trip. And the real purpose of this trip was to see her sister, the sister of Aunt Winnie, Aunt Alice, And that's why we're picking a visit her Aunt Alice together with Aunt Winnie, because we need to find the purpose of the trip, not the additional information. Let's move to the next one. Aunt Alice met her living by, so we need to find the occupation which brought Aunt Alice money. It could be cook, keeping a boarding house, decorating houses, and working as a teacher at a college. As in the case with the previous one, there are many confusing words in here because there is a mentioning of college students, but there is no mentioning that she was educating them. They just were in the boarding house that she kept. And by the way, she kept a boarding house. That's the main source of her income. But I thought that some additional tricky points would be necessary to be shown to you because they drag attention a lot. It's also, as I may see here, a mentioning of her great cooking abilities and the rooms which were decorated, but as I've mentioned before, it's not really relevant to the previous one, to our main point that she kept a boarding house to maintain her living. And the next sentence, Sally was waiting for her first train trip so impatiently. So again, we have the first train trip and the idea of waiting. So she was waiting, and the actions she could do is packing her things before the trip, losing her appetite, or asking her mother many questions, or losing sleep. So our keyword is waiting for first train trip. We need to find it. Yeah. In the third paragraph, we have a sentence, I've never ridden a train before, which is the link to our first train trip. And she became more and more excited as the magic day drew near. So that's about her waiting. We have the answer right away. I kept questioning mother about train travel, and that was the reaction of a child about waiting. I think many of us did these things. So the answer is asking her mother many questions about train trips. Here we have the idea of riding backwards. Our keyword will be riding backwards in particular, because riding is not really relevant in this situation. And we are searching for the reason why Sally didn't want to do this. Maybe she could get sick, could miss her station, miss the conductor, or she wanted to see where she was going. Let's search for the answer. We have analyzed 3 paragraphs, so I'm moving to the 4th one. Usually, one paragraph is devoted to one question, and you can save your time with just scanning the text and counting how many paragraphs have you already analyzed. We can see the keyword could ride backwards in the second sentence of the 4th paragraph, and we need to find the reason. Here Sally asks, why would anyone want to see where they'd been? I only wanted to see what they had for me. So her description about the greatness of riding forward is the answer why she didn't want to ride backward. So the opposition is our key. And the answer will be she wanted to see where she was going, just because she didn't want to look back. And then we are moving to the trip to Pittsburgh, but train seems so exotic to Sally. The keyword here will be exotic, and of course train trip. And the reasons for it: she never traveled so far. The train ride was different from a car ride. She never traveled in comfort and never traveled without her parents. As well, as I've mentioned before, I've just cropped the text into 2 parts, so don't be afraid that the text is a bit different. Here we need to skim a bit and need to find something about a train ride. Here we have a description in the second paragraph, and she'd been through all these towns by car, but this was different. So the distinction from the car ride is the key. Also, further on, we have the description that the shaky ride of the coaches, soft brown plush seats, and the smell of the engine. They may get you confused because it expresses some kind of comfort, but this is not the main point. These particular attributes of the train ride made it exotic, not the comfort. So we are speaking about the difference from a car ride. And also Sally made a link that she been there while riding the car, which only solidifies our claim. And also in the next sentence, not the sentence, but the question, we had information about lunchtime, and Sally guessed what could possibly be there. We have some description of food. Let's skim them: meat sandwiches, bread and butter, fried chicken, and tea with chocolate cakes. So in the text, you have to find the word lunchtime, and it's in the fourth paragraph. I was dying to know and had packed a lunch. We need to skip some dialogues here, and literally we have the word I had expected lunch, meat sandwiches. So meat sandwiches is our pick. The next one, Aunt Alice was waiting for Sally and Aunt Winnie. So we have Aunt Alice as a keyword and waiting. Where could she wait for them? The answer is home, car, the platform, or the bus stop. So we're moving down our text. We have the Aunt Winnie, yes, and the Pittsburgh station, and caught the sight of Aunt Alice. So as long as you see Aunt Alice, you need to read the surroundings. And previously we mentioned that there is a Pittsburgh station, and she was waiting for them at the station. Firstly, because it was mentioned, and secondly, because if you arrive in a train and you see someone, most likely they are waiting for you at the station. So we're here on the platform. And the tips to elicit some useful points from our discussion is that the questions are ordered. Well, I've said it to you in some other words. What I mean here is that you have a question, and since you found the answer, you should move to the next paragraph, because most likely the information will be already there. And also you have to identify keywords, skim and scan, and search for the direct statement of the fact, I'm sorry. By the way, this point is quite important, because sometimes our brain works in a way that you pick some information from here and from there, and you just make your suggestions and not pay attention to the fact that it's not mentioned in the text. And you need to be careful to restrict your brain in a way that you need solid evidence for what you are looking for. And the final part of the test, which is grammar, we're moving to this one. And here we need to transform the word build, and as well as in the second reading, you just need to read the surroundings. We have a blank space, the past, by. The by thing is the indicator for passive voice, so you just need to change the word build into the past form to make it passive. So the answer is built by civilizations. We also have to change another verb, bring to life. And we also have a direct statement of time in 2009, and this indicator states that there is just a past simple, so we got brought. Here I don't think we need to choose anything, that's why I highlighted если это необходимо, so we just investigate the circles closely. Well, this is a rare case, because when I was preparing for the exam, I always had to change something, and while I was preparing for this webinar, I was quite surprised to find that the part если это необходимо is really existing. Well, here we have a pronoun it. Actually, there are not so many ways in which you can choose the option how to change the pronoun, so you just need to read for the sentence. That's what I wrote here for you. So the option will be itself because .h itself had been built. Here we have to change the verb make, and let's read what's there. And we have a description of materials, so most likely it also will be kind of a passive voice. So the canyons are made of hard rock or hard red rock. Well, here we have to change the become word, and there is a time indicator in recent years. In recent years is stated in the nearest past, but not precise. That's why we have present perfect, so has become. Well, here we have an interesting grammatical structure, which is a first conditional, because if you something, a second fan, what will provide you. So the direct consequence of your action is the first conditional. That's why we have if your are is second fan, what will provide you with a challenge. And here we moving to the word formation, and most likely you need to pay attention to the articles mostly, because if you have an article, that's a noun. So that's quite important. Here we have an article, and we need to choose the option to which we can alter the word apprentice. And let's read a bit to find out the information to make the sense. Yeah, we have the Academy of Arts and Sciences book, so it's something about learning, and the apprenticeship will be our choice because like Reppen picked a scholarship. We don't have the article here, but we have a description of Impressionist painting. And we have what France, and the adjective from France is French. So French Impressionists. Psychology, as long as we don't have an article as well as in the previous one, we need one more adjective, and depth is usually psychological. So we choose this one. The word courage. This one is a tricky one because you have to read the entire sentence to get it right. And this is a pity because Western prejudice may have many adults from looking closely at Rapin's work. So we have an action, and we have a negative sentence. So the answer will be discouraged. Well, also I mentioned previously in the reading sections about homogeneous sentences. Here we have the most exciting, the most original, and it will be ambitious because we have a lot of homogeneous adjectives. So we need to put one more. As I've said, will be ambitious. Here we have word tense, and that something is filled with something related to tense. It will be tension, a noun. And here are some tips for you to not to recall what I've said. I said a lot of things, and here are the most essential ones. You need to search for clues like prepositions, time indicators, homogeneous parts, articles. And also you could revise tenses, grammar structures, and word formation. Well, I think that you all have handbooks for the preparation for the exam, and I believe that they cover all of these topics in their books. You can just revise them or some conspects in your textbooks if you have any, or just to Google information which is missing. For example, if you are passing the text and one of the topics is usually like falling out, you could revise it. And the last task for today is about entering. And I don't like this exercise at all because it's designed for you to lose points sometimes. But if you're attentive enough, I believe you can do it. And let's see what do we have here. Unfortunately, we had to read a lot here and translate a lot to get the idea, but I made a shortcut. And here we have Margaret, who kept secret the way she made her recipes, and the phrasal verb will be kept in. Wait, and actually I spelled it for you. I'm really sorry about it. And here we have two sentences. Here are also the translations. The author wants to be honest, and the next one is the transformation of object into the other, and the phrasal verb and the phrase will be to tell the truth and turn out to be underdone. This one made me so angry because there are actually two options which you could choose, and the answer will be signal, but also I believe it could be movement, but as long as this movement provoked the action of another character, it should be a signal. Some words for you to pay attention to. Here the author want to make a revelation about admitting something, and that's why I have to admit. It's about acknowledging the fact and stating this fact. Here we have a phrasal verb which is translated as зависело от, and we just put the preposition on. Actually, I don't know what comments can I make here because it's just about phrasal verbs and inserting them into the blank spaces. We just skip them quite fast. And if we read the sentence here, we'll get the sense that I like to doing something with a knife and go with it. The preposition will be мне нравилось смотреть, как он берет нож, and the verb will be watch him, because when you watch something doing, it's like paying a lot of attention to it, and usually you enjoy it. And the third grammar exercise tips that you should always translate. You should revise phrasal verbs, try to develop the sense of the language, trust intuition, and hope for the best, because really this exercise is designed for you to lose points. One word about intuition, that usually when you have the first idea, it's the most correct in this one because it comes from your unconscious. And I believe you listen to songs, you watch films, just play games, and you've heard these verbs many times. And please trust what your gut feeling tells you. And I think that's all. We covered all the needed exercises, and if you have any questions, I would be really glad to answer them. Oh, you're very much welcome. Yeah, I really hope that will be anyhow helpful for you. Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. I really hope all of you will pass the exams successfully. Thank you for coming. Oh, That's a good question. How did you not worry about the exam? I was very worried about the exams. I even lost my sleep for for a week or so. But when you come into the room, you need to understand that like nothing can be changed. You just need to enter the room and show your best performance. And your future is in your hands, and you're the only one person who can do something for you. And as long as you all spending your free time here, you're very interested in passing your exams, and your preparation, it will be very useful. Just believe in your knowledge. You've prepared for this for the whole year. You just need to write it once, and you know how to do all the exercises. You know how to listen, you know how to read, how to write. And the point is that when you enter the room, you're so anxious, you're so scared. But after the second listening, it's usually just come to your attention that oh, it's fine. I'm just doing great. It's like all the stuff which we did in the simulations. And yeah, just realize that you prepared a lot, and that's time to show your knowledge. I think it was helpful. I hope so. Or if you need some particular tips, I could also think of something, or if that was enough, just let me know if you're not worried about that. Great talking to you. Goodbye, and I wish you good luck.